Head of the Family is a 1996 comedy horror film directed by Charles Band under the pseudonym Robert Talbot. The movie opens at the Stackpole house. Right away, the soundtrack lets you know what kind of movie this is going to be. It's going to be scary, but it's also going to be zany. Out walks the Stackpoles. Wheeler, Ernestina, and Otis. Over to local diner, Howard is conducting some business. I think we found the prototype for Dog the Bounty Hunter. He berates his wife Loretta, which upsets the owner of the diner, Lance. In walks the Stackpoles. What's with all the smoke? Did they just get dropped off by a UFO? They give a list of items to Lance. Oh, this is one of those grocery store diners I've heard so much about.
How you doing, Ernestina?
Seems Tara Reid's been taking her acting lessons from Ernestina. Even though he's married, Howard wants to get with Ernestina.
Why no one love Otis? Otis have feelings too, you know.
Howard and Loretta have a special sort of relationship.
You know how I feel about, what's that word?
Fucking?
Loretta goes to the bathroom to hook up with Lance. They aren't trying to hide this very well. Howard doesn't know, but Susie the waitress does. He goes back, but they manage to get Loretta into the employee bathroom just in time. Lance is hiding his shame behind a box of lettuce. Later that evening, Howard wants to talk to Lance. Howard forces Lance into letting him become a partner for the store. Essentially, he shakes him down to get paid for doing nothing. Later that evening, Lance and Loretta are continuing what they started earlier. What is going on over there? Otis puts up a barricade, making a truck drive right up to their house. Lance has a way with words.
Would you look at this? Some sort of fence or something.
He sneaks off and sees the Stackpoles abduct the driver. He goes back to Loretta and tells her he thinks he has a way to get rid of Howard. The next day, the truck driver wakes up and, Judge Doom's brother! They knock the guy out for some sort of operation. Looks like they've been doing this for a while. Wow, Lady Gaga just keeps reinventing herself.
Snow. Snow. Snow.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's not a diner grocery store. It's the Wonderama Stop and Shop. That sign they stuck over the real sign says so. Lance looks like he's going to an audition for studs. He confronts the Stackpoles about what they've been doing. That night, Otis breaks into Lance's apartment. I think Otis missed his call as a wrestler.
You fight, Otis hit you. You yell, Otis hit you.
He takes him to the Stackpole house to meet the head of the family. Get it? He's the head of the family. This is Myron. He explains that the family was quintuplets, with each one being just a bit unique. Otis is super strong, Wheeler has super senses, Ernestina is super sexy, and Myron is super smart. They're telepathically linked to Myron, and he can control them all.
Go on over and press the third button.
Third button? You mean the only button? Myron tells him he's been kidnapping people to do experiments to see if he can move his brain into a normal body. Lance tells Myron he saw what they're doing, and he wants them to get rid of Howard in exchange for him not going to the police. Myron begrudgingly agrees. The next day, they're doing it again. He tells Loretta the plan and to have an alibi for the police. Howard runs into Ernestina, but it's a trap. He gets a call from Myron letting him know Howard won't be around anymore. That night, Loretta comes to see Lance. He tells her they shouldn't be seen together, but decides that since she's here, they might as well celebrate.
Take your panties off.
Otis delivers meals to the victims of Myron's experiments. Oh boy, a raw potato! Lance did some investigating and found out the Stackpoles are rich. So he tells Myron he's going to have to pay to keep him quiet. He also sent a confession to a lawyer to hold on to, so in case he turns up dead, the confession would go directly to the police. Lance opens the drawer to find the production budget. Loretta's not so great about keeping this a secret.
Did you call the police?
Of course I did, just like you told... of course I did, but...
Lance and Loretta are, days like this probably made Lance happy he became an actor. Myron's using Wheeler to spy on Lance and Loretta. Who wrote this dialogue, horny 15-year-olds?
You know, you fill me up better than any old steak and potatoes.
Sweet cake, you're the only hot fudge sundae I want to dip my spoon into.
Wheeler listens in on Lance calling his lawyer, so they strong-arm the guy until he gives up the letter. Meanwhile, this movie is about 50% these two having sex. That night, why doesn't this guy lock his door? Ernestina stops at Lance's apartment to drop off his money. She then, oh dear, Keep in mind, this is really Myron. Ew.
Move out of way. Otis want love.
Otis then goes to get Loretta. Over in the Stackpool torture dungeon, Lance and Loretta's evening is getting worse. Lance tells Myron he has a backup lawyer in case he ever found out the other lawyer was killed. Myron tells him he'll just torture Loretta until he gives up the name of the second lawyer. Loretta tries to con her way out by coming on to Myron. She takes off her clothes and how do I show this? Here is a semi-accurate visual representation of what happens next. Myron decides he's got no time for love.
What with my ongoing plans for world domination and all.
Why do things with big heads that talk like Orson Welles always want to take over the world? Anyway, since he's got no time for romance, and possibly not the equipment, he moves them into part 2 of the torture dungeon. Myron goes to the theater to have his slaves put on a play about Joan of Arc. They bring out Loretta to play the title role. This movie has a lot of plot. I don't remember this in Joan of Arc. He's going to torture Loretta unless Lance gives up the name of the second lawyer. Otis has taken a shine to Loretta, so he breaks Myron's control and rescues her, which sets the theater on fire. Myron takes off. Otis takes Loretta out through the prison and past Howard. Lance catches Myron and throws him down a flight of steps. Ernestina lures Lance to Wheeler, who kills him. So Otis and Loretta are the only two to escape alive. Loretta then realizes that Otis is the sole surviving heir to the Stackpool fortune. So it looks like she's got a sugar daddy after all.
There now, Otis. We're married.
Married?
The movie was shot partially in Monroeville, California, and other parts in sets at the studio. The Stackpool house was on loan from a family in Monrovia, so they shot what they could in and around the house. James Jones, who played Wheeler, was blinded whenever he wore the prosthetic eyes. In the opening scene when the Stackpools are walking down the stairs, it was very tricky for them to do it without him tripping. Michael Citronetti, under the stage name J.W. Para, played Myron. For the head effect, they had him in a prosthetic, oversized head and wheelchair. They then used forced perspective to make the head appear even larger. With the boxed-out chair, it helped to block off the screen, completing the illusion. Gordon Jennison Noyce played Howard. He's been in mostly TV shows like Party of Five and Growing Pains. His biggest break was in 1995's Virtuosity, where he got into a knife fight with Denzel Washington. Charles Band's father, Albert Band, has a cameo in the diner. Jackie Lovell played Loretta. She started acting in a bunch of softcore films like Who Killed Buddy Blue and Nude Bowling Party, before doing a few of Full Moon's softcore films under the Surrender Cinema line. She moved on to Full Moon with Head of the Family and continued with Hideous and The Killer Eye. In the late 90s, she moved away from movies where she had to constantly get naked, and had parts in shows like Law & Order Criminal Intent, and movies like the remake of The Pink Panther. She's since directed 2 movies with her husband Edward, Bug Boy Adventures and Crush the Serpent. Recently, she's come back to Full Moon to be part of the series Trophy Heads. Head of the Family was at the tail end of the direct-to-video craze of the 80s and 90s. Full Moon had been churning out classic series like Trancers and Puppet Master, so they were hoping Head of the Family would be the next series they could continue. They even set up a sequel, Bride of the Head, but aside from some promotional material, the film never came to fruition. While Head of the Family is not as well known as the other more popular Full Moon films, it's still uniquely entertaining in its own way. It's the right amount of goofy fun, and it feels just like classic Full Moon. Lovell really steals the show, and you could tell she's enjoying herself. Although she said one of her favorite films she's worked on is Hideous, which, yes, I'll be doing that one eventually. Myron really sells it as the superbrain trapped in a chair. He plays it menacingly, but as Dr. Herbert West said,
"Who's going to believe a talking head? Get a job in a sideshow."
Oh, what exactly did he say?
He said, go get Lance, bring him over here and move your poochie buns.